How do we build adequate spiritual solutions? Before I talk about what this is or the benefits it has to our lives, let's start with some problems people had in the scriptures and how they didn't solve them with adequate spiritual solutions. First, the Israelites. In 1 Samuel chapter 8, Samuel put his sons as judges over Israel, but they were not righteous. The Israelites saw this, and instead of going back to God to ask about the way forward, spoiler alert, they were supposed to, they decided that they wanted a king, so they could be like other nations. Samuel warned them against it, but they continued. Fast forward hundreds of years later, and now they have King Jeroboam. He was the one that turned Israel away from God, which led to their eventual destruction. See 2 Kings chapter 13 verse 6, 2 Kings chapter 17 verses 21 to 23, etc., because he made false gods in the land. Jeroboam could have trusted in God so that his people wouldn't leave him, which was his fear, as we see in 1 Kings chapter 12 verses 25 to 30, but he decided to make false gods instead, so the Israelites, the 10 tribes, not the entire 12, wouldn't have to go to Jerusalem anymore to worship Jehovah, which was the tradition. But there's another example of someone who did not use an adequate spiritual solution, another king actually, and that's King Zedekiah of Judah. In Jeremiah chapter 38 verses 16 to 23 and chapter 39, Zedekiah was told that if he handed himself over to the Babylonians, himself, his family, and the city Jerusalem would be safe, but if he ran away, all of those things would be destroyed. I mean, the decision to take in this situation seems obvious, but instead, when King Nebuchadnezzar's army came and besieged the city, King Zedekiah, instead of turning himself in, he ran away. Of course, he was caught. His family was killed in front of him, his eyes were cut out, and Jerusalem was burned to the ground. The psalmist, talking through God's eyes, mentioned how if Israel just listened to him, they'd be dominant over all enemies, and fed with the finest crops in Psalm chapter 81 verses 13 to 16. We see around the same thing in the book of Isaiah, in Isaiah chapter 48 verses 18 to 19. This was why we were advised to trust God by King Solomon in Proverbs chapter 3 verses 5 to 7. Let's read that. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths. Be not wise in thine own eyes. Fear the Lord, and depart from evil. Paul had also said that our sufficiency is of God, and not ourselves, in 2 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 5, and I think we all know why. But all of those things happened thousands of years ago. What about the problems in our own time? If we ever look at the news, we'll see many problems every day. We might be confused or worried about why they're happening, or if they'll greatly affect our lives. But there is an adequate spiritual solution. And I know you might have heard this before, but it's to read the Bible and to pray to God for wisdom. And the reason is that we should convince ourselves that if our conscience is clear, God won't leave us behind, and He won't give His children anything they can't handle. Let's get some inspiration via the scriptures. And the Lord shall deliver me from every evil work, and will preserve me unto His heavenly kingdom, to whom be glory forever and ever. Amen. 2 Timothy chapter 4 verse 18. See Psalm chapter 15 verses 1 to 6 to see the psalmist talking about how, if we serve God with a clean conscience, we'll not be tossed away by world events. That's the spiritual solution. Everything has been prophesied already. That's the reason why the Bible was written in the first place. See Romans chapter 15 verse 4. So all we need to do is to follow the steps God has planned for us, and we'll live a peaceful life. Christ had promised us to rest if we follow Him in Matthew chapter 11 verses 28 to 30. Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you, and learn of me, for I am meek and lowly in heart, and ye shall find rest unto your souls. For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light. It's nice that we also have an example of some people who used an adequate spiritual solution, and those were the apostles in Acts chapter 6. There were disputes in the church because the Grecian widows were getting left out in the daily handouts and gifts they were giving, and it was becoming a bit much. Instead of focusing all their time on that issue and forgetting why they were there in the first place, the apostles set 7 trusted men to handle the issue, and then they were able to give their full focus to the ministry. Everything went well after that, and the ministry continued. But if we were to summarize all of this, I think to build an adequate spiritual solution for any part of our lives is to just include God in our decision making. God is omnipotent, according to Revelation chapter 19 verse 6, so he'll certainly be able to guide us in our day-to-day lives. All we have to do is trust him fully first. And if we're able to acquire that, I don't think we'll need anything else, which is why I'm ending my video here on how do we build adequate spiritual solutions. I ask you to like, subscribe, and click the notification bell if you want to see the rest of these videos when I post them. Have a great day and keep building.